Are you in a relationship? If you are, does your partner act excessively jealous and possessive? Does your partner control where you go or what you do? Does he have a bad and unpredictable temper? Does he hurt you or threaten to hurt you or kill you? Or does he destroy your belongings? If your answer is yes for most of these questions, you are a victim of domestic violence.
The events depicted in this movie are fictitious. Any similarity to any person, living or dead, is merely coincidental.
Domestic violence are behaviors used by one person in a relationship to control the other. Partners may be married or not married, heterosexual, gay or lesbian, living together or separated, or even dating. This abuse includes verbal, physical, psychological, and sexual abuse.
The majority of the victims of reported domestic violence are women.
Examples of abuse include name-calling or put-downs, keeping a partner from contacting their family or friends, withholding money, stopping a partner from getting or keeping a job, actual or threatened physical harm, sexual assault, stalking, and intimidation. Violence can be criminal and includes physical assault like hitting, pushing, or shoving, sexual abuse like unwanted or forced sexual activity, and stalking. Although emotional, psychological, and financial abuse are not criminal behaviors, they are forms of abuse and can lead to criminal violence. About 37% of all women experience battering, and from those that are battered, 60% are battered during pregnancy.
I've been abused for 5 years of my marriage. We were so happy. I promised him that I would be his wife and honor him. I should have seen it coming. He changed after I was pregnant. He was becoming more and more dependent on the alcohol. He became so dependent on the relationship. He was impulsive with his decision making. He became so jealous that he wouldn't even let me out of the house to see my family and friends. He was sometimes so suspicious that I was having an affair with someone else. I continued to try to please him the best I could. After all, I felt like it was my fault that this was happening. I was the one to blame for all these things that were going on. He made me feel like I deserved everything he gave me. I felt like I was the dysfunctional one in this relationship. What was so wrong with me that my husband couldn't love me? Why was he being so mean to me?
High school and college-age dating couples have engaged in an estimated 20% to 52% of reported physical abuse.
There are a lot of risk factors that went into Heather Pyung's domestic abusive relationship. Some more risk factors that can be included are if you are planning to leave or you recently have just left an abusive relationship. Maybe you are going through poverty and you find yourself unemployed. You also may have some physical or mental disorders that can make you susceptible to an abusive relationship. Sadly, being recently separated and divorced can increase your risks, as well as being isolated. Also, witnessing an abuse as a child, and sadly, just like Heather Pyung stated, pregnancy, especially if it is unplanned. It can come about in bad reactions to the partner, and it may not be wanted. And then, being over 30 years old can also increase, as well as being stalked by your partner. Now, there are also risk factors that you can find out for those who are trying to be abusers themselves. And if you can pick these up, if they abuse alcohol or drugs, there are high risk factors for being an abuser. Being a witness or victim as a child as well, they can turn into abusers themselves. And if they also have a history of being an abuser, that is a giant significant factor. Also, once again, being unemployed and underemployed or just in poverty. And lastly, if you pick up that they are abusive to animals, they are most likely very abusive to their partners as well. Let's take a look at this abuser and his testimony.
Men who as children witnessed their parents' domestic violence were twice more likely to abuse their own wives than sons of nonviolent parents.
It's just so hard for me. I lost my job, and then we became poor. Okay, well, I was abused as a child. And I actually saw my own mom also get abused by my dad every night. Heather, she always complained that I wasn't around and that she needed my support. Thing is, I was never there for her. I started to feel depressed about our own problems, my own problems, and in order to get away from all the stress, I would just leave. I found myself drinking more, and then at times I would come home drunk. We would get into arguments, and after that, one night, it was terrible. She felt the urge to shout at me, and I couldn't take the shouting. I was the man of the house. I am the man of the house, but I just wanted her to stay quiet. And then I slapped her. And it just got worse after that.
Approximately about 93% of women who killed their mates had been battered by them.
From my many years of studying domestic violence, the victims always have this intense fear of their partner. The victims always blame themselves. They watch themselves how they talk because they don't want to trigger the rage of the abuser. It is sad for this woman. Take Heather as an example. She always went along with what Jeremy said. Even though it's not her fault, she always blamed herself. These women, they feel like they cannot do anything right for their partner. The abuser always see their victims, as in wives and their children, as their possession or sex objects. They control their victims. If you hear it like this, obviously you think that this is all the abuser's fault. But for these women, they feel like they deserve to be heard.
Domestic violence is the #1 cause of ED visits by women.
As a nurse, sometimes I would see patients walking with bruises that they said they got from falling or tripping or just small accidents. And as a nurse, what do? You have to make sure that the victim is safe and that medical attention is provided for. And you do that by setting up the interview in private and ensure confidentiality. Separate the abuser and the victim by saying you need to do an X-ray on the victim. Also assess other things like sexual abuse, chemical abuse, or suicidal thoughts. Ask the victim if she has somewhere to go. Make the victim feel that it's not their fault. Also, ask if the victim is interested in pressing charges and give verbal and written information on local attorneys and legal clinics. Be sure to also give the victim resources like hotlines and information on shelters.
Children who live in an atmosphere of IPV or intimate partner violence are 30% to 60% likely to be abused as well.
finally left Daddy. It was terrifying every night. Daddy never hit me. He always hurt Mommy. I cried every night. I even prayed to God that Daddy would leave. I couldn't do anything to help Mommy. I felt so powerless. But then, Mommy had the courage to leave Daddy. Mommy called the hotline and the resources. She called the Family Violence Rape Crisis Center 24-hour hotline. She also called the emergency center. And then she contacted the shelter. And then we both lived happily ever after.
Physical violence is estimated to occur in 20% to 35% of dating relationships.
Oh, hello. In conclusion, we hope that we were able to inform you of what domestic violence is, how to discover hidden abuse, risk factors and characteristics of abusers, and how to help both the abuser and the abused to move on in order to heal. Remember, awareness is the first step into a life better worth living.